Aurelia. The mirror asks if she wishes to accept it. Having done this, the young lady sees her parents, and they ask if their daughter is eating well, and if she is doing well. The king and queen tell their daughter not to worry about them and ask if she has any pain and if she is sleeping soundly. The girl doesn't look very happy. Her parents say that she should be healthy. After that, the girl asks if there is any news. To this question, the rulers of the kingdom do not answer anything. Well, here, the jester smiles and says there is gossip that the princess will remain an old maid, grow old innocent, imprisoned in a tower for the rest of her days, forgotten by all. The protagonist has nothing to say to this. The king cries out to silence the jester, even if he is telling the truth, after which he tries to comfort his daughter, but he is not very good at it. So Alina says that she has another call to make, so it is time to say goodbye. Snow White from the neighboring kingdom calls to her through the magic mirror. She claims that here is her prince has rescued her. The protagonist is genuinely happy about this and congratulates her friend. The brunette tells Alina that she's sorry her friend wasn't the first to be released, but since she's been waiting longer, the chosen one will be much better. The young lady says not to worry about her because Snow White now has a whole world and she should enjoy it. The protagonist bestows her friend with a smile, but realizes that now she is the only one left. When the girl goes to bed, she can't sleep. She remembers the words about the princess, forever imprisoned in the tower, forgotten by all. The girl wonders if it could be because she was alerted by a noise that had recently occurred, and wonders if she is obliged to spend her whole life there. But she tries to push these bad thoughts away from her and thinks of giving herself to the happy pictures painted by her imagination. The girl is already making plans for herself. She imagines that as soon as she gets out of there, she will immediately go to the sea, will be introduced to pirates, and if she is lucky, she will meet a mermaid, and they will travel around the kingdom underwater, but she should betroth them. The girl is pulled out of her dream by a sound coming from the door. She scrambles out of bed and asks who is there. Someone's voice comes from behind the door. The guy claims he has come to rescue the princess and is a prince. Alina is shocked. Her eyes are shining with joy because finally a hero has arrived who will save her from all this. She realizes that things are bad, so she immediately runs to the mirror. First, the girl puts her head in order, and after that she checks if her nose hair is visible. Then Alina rushes to the doors. The guy at the door says his name is Louise, and he is the 5th prince of the kingdom of Freelid, ruled by King Trindamus. The protagonist can't remember such a kingdom. She realizes that the 5th prince of a kingdom she has never heard of has arrived. The guy claims that the very word Freelid means unmelted icings, and that the kingdom has a population of 100,000. He continues to firmly state that it is located in the northernmost part of the Lando continent, and its lands are barren. The girl realizes this is a sudden collapse of information, so decides to just open the door, and with a slightly strained smile tells the prince to pass. But when she looks at his face, she realizes that he is good-looking. She realizes that this is the prince who has come to rescue her. She thinks that the prince and princess have finally met. Looking into his eyes, her face flushes with color, and the only thing on her mind was for him to kiss her. But Louise only bows and states that he is glad to meet him. Alina thanks him for coming. After that, the boy turns to the princess. He pulls a wedding ring from his pocket and asks if the young lady will become his wife. Then he puts the ring on her finger. The protagonist looks very touched by the ring. But in her heart, she is only glad for the long-awaited freedom, because now that she has the ring, the girl will be able to go out. The blonde man hands her a piece of paper and asks her to sign the contract. The protagonist feels that he does not trust her. Alina asks where to sign, and when he turns away, spreading the papers across the table, she is indignant. "Prince," you say, she can peruse it and sign at the bottom. This was followed by the signing of the Certificate of Salvation, the prince's ID card, the marriage application, and the marriage registration form. The princess realizes that she is indeed liberated and married. Suddenly, the prince's stomach is rumbling, so the protagonist suggests that he gets something to eat first. At the table, she looks at the young man. She's prepared clothes and food for him. She notices that his eyes are like 2 sapphires, but he looks like he has been starving for a long time. She tells the boy to take his time. Suddenly, Alina notices wounds across his body and asks about them. The prince claims that the thorny shrubbery surrounding the castle is magical. Even if trimmed, it would immediately grow back in half a day, enveloping the castle, cutting through even the skin. But upon entering the castle, he was faced with another not insignificant problem, the dragon guarding the castle, and finished him off. Louise claims him in their battle, But before he can finish his sentence, he immediately passes out. The protagonist realizes that the strength has left the prince. The young man came to save her by going through 100 thorns, scratching her whole body. Thinking about it, Alina has only one question: why did he do it? Tomorrow she will leave this castle and return to the kingdom. To the delight of people, they will organize a wedding ceremony, and as it was willed, will live happily ever after like many others with a similar story. Alina covers the prince with a plaid and wonders if he will like it and if he saved her for that. Though his motives should not concern the young lady now, for she can now leave the castle. Since she found herself there, that soul has been sealed in captivity. But now the girl is free and will live her life doing what she has never been able to do, what she wants for herself. In any case, she thanks Louise for saving her. The next day, she packs her things and prepares to leave. The prince asks if she needs so much luggage because she will get tired quickly. The young lady says it's all right and asks if they can go. Afterward, they walk down the stairs, and Alina claims it's the first time she's ever walked down the stairs. As they walk down the hallway, the protagonist says she didn't realize it was so organized. Walking into the great hall, she admires the dragon and wonders if he is asleep. The girl looks at the young man and wonders how this skinny prince managed to defeat the dragon alone. She realizes that it turns out that he can be relied on and admires her husband. The princess thinks he was worth waiting so long for, and in the end, she came out the winner. The young man looks around nervously, and the protagonist notices this and asks if something is wrong. The blonde says nothing of the sort, but suddenly, someone calls out his name. When the protagonist looks up, she sees the witch in front of her, the one with tears in her eyes asking Louise not to leave. Alina is shocked. She wonders why the witch suddenly appeared and what the connection to the prince is. The lady with the purple hair asks if he really just wanted to leave, giving up on her. This raises even more questions for the protagonist. The prince apologizes and says he can't help it, and bows his head and asks for forgiveness. The witch, gritting her teeth, says that the boy is bad. She screams that she curses him. The young man asks the witch to forgive him for upsetting her. The main character is in complete shock at what is happening. She doesn't realize what she has just seen. The girl thinks about the prince and the witch and wonders what happened between them. Well, she just doesn't have the tongue to ask about it. The boy turns to the princess and asks her to let him be honest with her. The young lady asks what is wrong, but she wonders if they are breaking up. But you can't just cancel the wedding. Louise argues that the point is that he didn't save her because he loves her, for the reward. The girl says she understands. She thinks a declaration of love would have sounded much more unexpected. The prince says that, as he said yesterday, his country is tiny and poor. The people there are starving, the royal treasury will soon be completely empty, and poverty permeates every corner of the kingdom. He vows to protect the princess of the Eternal at the cost of his life. And in return, he asks to show favor to his country, for he really needs her help. The protagonist tells him to look up. She states with a smile on her face that he is the one who saved her, so she owes him her life. So from now on, she asks him not to bow his head to her. She looks at the guy and states that whether he likes it or not, they will soon be spouses. When the girl helps him up, she realizes that they are now holding hands. Suddenly her face is flushed, and she says it's getting a little hot. So she quickly points to the door and shrieks that there's an exit so they should hurry up. When the protagonist finally finds herself free, she can't hold back tears of joy. After all, how much water has passed since the last time she was out of the castle? The prince turns to the young lady and she turns around. But look in the direction of her future husband. She sees nothing and asks where he is. Louise, on the other hand, is a little lower. He tells the princess he is near her. But suddenly he realizes he's a little lower. He is now in the body of a baby. The main character is in complete shock at this. She asks what happened to the prince. When the protagonist was pointing to the exit, that prince remembered the witch's question about whether this was what he so desired. Louise thinks he doesn't know. He doesn't know what he wants. Maybe he wishes he could always keep up with the likes of Alina. It had been like that up until now. Everyone took care of his older brothers while he was neglected. His father called the boy a useless snot-nosed snot and told him not to even dream of anything because he would only do as he said. Now the boy in his thoughts asks Her Highness to wait and take him with her, for he does not know where to go. On the way, he notices that his steps are getting shorter and Her Highness is getting faster. Now, looking at the surprised face of the protagonist, the guy doesn't understand why she is so surprised and why she has grown so much. When the girl faints, he calls her dear and tries to run over to help her up, but immediately stumbles over his clothes. When the young man looks at his reflection in the mirror, he realizes that he has indeed become a child, and realizes that those words of the witch were indeed true. The guy starts to panic. He cries out that this just can't be happening. The main character can't hold back a chuckle, and Louise asks if he is some kind of joke to her, after which the girl apologizes. Prince claims that maybe it's for the best, but the pants shoes don't fit at all now. Not only have my legs gotten shorter, but my tongue. After saying that, the protagonist couldn't hold back her smile again, after which the guy can no longer hold back his tears. He asks what he should do. Elena tries to calm him down. The young man apologizes to the princess and states that he is not one to cry much. Play can often shed a whimper. But before he can even finish his sentence, his eyes fill with tears again. He once again asks what he should do. After that, he starts crying like a child. The young lady wonders if he has not only a body, but also a childish brain. The guy continues to cry desperately. He asks what will happen if he doesn't go back. Meanwhile, the protagonist is looking for something in her bag. She asks the prince to look in her direction, after which the guy does. The princess holds out a jar of sweets to him and tells him that these are the best candies from the most famous candy store in their kingdom. She then feeds them to her future husband, and he does not resist and eats the candy. Then the guy's eyes light up, and he claims it's delicious, and now realizes there is such a flavor. The young lady asks if he swallowed his tongue. The guy says it's the first time he's ever tasted something so delicious. Elena is surprised by this, because no matter how poor the kingdom is, a prince who has never eaten candy sounds a little strange. She wonders if their country doesn't have such sweets. The protagonist decides to think about it and offers the boy to go with her. The boy asks where to, but in response he hears that they will go to the witch. He will apologize and ask to lift the curse. The boy waves his head, claiming it's useless, and the sorceress will definitely not forgive him. Elena cries out, "What is this nonsense?" and asks if he wants to stay like this forever. The boy says Tony is not wasting his time. Suddenly, the building behind them starts to collapse. The main characters are shocked by this. When they look up, they see the witch flying away on her dragon. Elena realizes it's too late and asks what the hell happened there. After which she and Louise finally despair. The girl asks, "And what are they going to do now?" The prince claims it's all his fault, as he didn't listen to the witch, which is why it happened. He tearfully says that with a case like this, he can't get married, and if he says he saved the princess, no one will ever believe him. The boy shrieks that in the end there is nothing left, and he is eerily useless. The main character tries to say something, but the boy only apologizes, because in The Princess Today is the happiest day, and he spoils it. He suggests that the young lady go and enjoy her freedom. Elena asks how he is, and how he will be able to get home with such a body. The little boy waves his head and claims he won't be going back to that place. The princess asks what about his family, but Louise says that they, on the contrary, without him, will only be happy. The protagonist should not worry. The kid says that, truth be told, this is the first time they're seeing each other, and there's nothing between them. The protagonist has nothing to add, so she steps up and says she gets it. He thinks the girl has achieved her goal, and she doesn't really care about him and his ex-girlfriend. But where do you see a person who would leave a crying baby in a deserted place? The main character walks up to the kid and tells him to get up. The kid doesn't know what she's talking about, but the protagonist suggests that he go to her kingdom, to which the boy has only more questions. The young lady claims that although the man told her not to worry, but how can she leave the man who saved her? Especially since she said she wanted to thank the prince, so he should get up now, for it is direct evidence for the thanksgiving of salvation, and the marriage contract, and all that is due. The guy looks at those papers, and Elena says there are many great mages in their kingdom, so they might be able to break the curse, so a wedding is possible too. The young man is very happy about this, and says with a smile on his face that there is still hope. The young lady claims that everything is just so, and that he should just trust her, because for 10 years she has held on only because of hope. After that, she offers to go to her kingdom. True, before they do that, they first have to contact the king and queen. The girl digs through her backpack, then pulls out a magic mirror from there, because with it, you can contact the people from the kingdom who will come to take them away. But the mirror apparently doesn't work, and the protagonist realizes she's screwed up. After all, if the castle has collapsed, the MEVI isn't working either. MEVI is an abbreviation for the communication system between magical mirrors. Once again, the protagonist realized that hope is gone. But suddenly, the young lady jumps up and tells the young man not to give up. She says it's a good idea to go to the nearest village first, since they've been getting MEVIs lately. After that, they go into the forest. The prince asks if everything will be all right, The young lady says that he should trust her, after which the boy asks if they are sure to go that way. Alina tells the man not to worry, because if they go west, they'll definitely come out somewhere, maybe. But the farther they went, the thicker the forest became. Suddenly, they saw shadows in the trees, and in a second, Elena and Louise were already surrounded by elves. One of them said it was an intruder. Behind the protagonists could be seen a sign that said, State's Elf Zone, as well as signs warning that if anyone encountered an elf, they should flee. The protagonist at this time was walking unaware of anything. She asked her future husband with a smile on her face, "Doesn't it seem to him that when you walk in such a place, as if you were playing adventure again, as in childhood, about the heart beats faster?" The prince was a little hurt by these words, for now he had indeed become a real child. The young lady realizes she's so impressed that she's completely forgotten about the prince, and he now looks like he's about to cry. The girl is the happiest person today, but the prince is the most unhappy. So the young lady decides to cheer him up a bit and lighten the mood with a good conversation. Alina wonders if she can ask him something. Then she asks why he went to rescue her. Louise doesn't really know what she's talking about. The girl claims that she is not the only princess in this world who is waiting for her prince, and it seems to her that there are princesses closer and richer. The guy says that even though it's not the answer she's expecting, he apologizes and claims that his older brother told him to go there. This was not the answer the young lady had expected, but the young man said it in such a way that she didn't even have time to be embarrassed. But the prince says with a smile on his face that he's glad he met the princess. Elena thinks how cute he is, but immediately tries to push such thoughts away from herself, because this bravely saved her adult man, who in the future will become her husband. He said so simply that it was his older brother's orders, but who in their right mind would risk their life in a far unknown land to save a girl they had never seen? She recalls the young man's words that he would not return, and the goal was reward. The protagonist thinks that there is no way that siblings would use each other for profit. She thinks she's been watching too many shows in the tower, so she says the prince seems very attached to his brother and obeys him in everything. After a slightly awkward silence, the girl asks if the prince might be interested in knowing anything about her. Well, the guy thought of nothing better than to ask about her age. When he sees the young lady's reaction, who wonders if he said something wrong again. The protagonist spits and says she doesn't like babes with no sense of tact. The only complex of the princess is that she has been of marriageable age for some time. The prince looks at his hands and realizes that he can't hold a sword with these hands because the skin is very soft and delicate and wounds will appear immediately. In this state, if there is danger, he will not be able to defend himself. Visibility is low because of the trees, but they only seem to be getting bigger, and the guy is oppressed by the feeling of danger. Since his body is weak, his mind is weak, but no matter how weak his body becomes, even if more trials appear, he decides to protect the princess. Just as he swore he would, he is obliged to bring her home unharmed. The main character looks into the trees and notices a squirrel there. Louise, on the other hand, thinks of only one thing, because all he needs to do is to protect the princess. That is his mission. At this time, the witch could not hold back her tears. The dragon tried to calm her down. Natalia 8 claimed that she felt that prince male was her destiny. And in general, it is not easy to find a man to her liking. Dragonslow says he recognizes that man is pure, sincere, kind, sweet, and handsome, straight up his mistress's ideal. From such words, the witch begins to sob even more. The dragon then tells her to forget at that ungrateful, horrible man, for there is nothing more annoying in this world than me determined man. He also adds that if his mistress is worried about him, there's no need to be, because now the princess principal will live happily together. But in response, the purple-haired lady starts crying even more. Slow asks why Isabel is crying so much and if she's really in love with that guy and if she's cast an unbreakable curse. The girl says she did something terrible, but as it happens, it wasn't her who put the curse on the prince. Dragon says that with Togo because making fun of the High Witch Isabel is too much. His mistress again says that there is no way to break this curse. At this point, Louise starts to feel uncomfortable. The main character asks what's wrong and if he's uncomfortable anywhere. The guy replies that everything is fine. But the princess notices that he looks very awkward and suggests that he just tell her what happened and she will help. But the young man cries out that everything is perfectly all right. Elena then says that if anything bothers him, he should tell her right away. The prince says that he has told her everything is fine and offers to go on. The lady with the pink hair can't hold back a smile hearing that. Before, when she looked at the prince from the back, he looked so sturdy, But now, he seems very cute. I can't help it. The prince has gotten so cute, but this one's cute. There's no other way to describe it but cute. His gaze used to be like that of a lone wolf, but now he's like a little puppy. The main character thinks his little round nape is also very cute. His skin is soft, and his cheeks are soft. He has a very cute little stature, and also his arms and legs. The prince has a feeling right now that he'd better not turn around. The young lady realizes that the prince has grown from such a sweet child into such a strong young man, but these things had better not be said out loud, for there will be a storm. Suddenly, the girl sees some cloth on the ground. She picks it up and wonders why it is lying there. But when she spreads out the cloth, she realizes that they are underpants. Then she turns to the prince and asks if it could be his underpants. The guy's in total shock, and the main character comes to the conclusion that he behaved like that because his underwear slipped off, and he couldn't even tell about it. The young lady asks if it's true and why he's so comfortable without underwear. She thinks the prince is embarrassed. Now because of the changes in his body, he can't even wear his panties. But the young man only asks the princess if she will continue to wear those panties. The young lady, with the most innocent expression in the world, says not to misunderstand her, because she had no strange thoughts, and the underwear just caught her eye, and she felt sorry for it. After that, they continue on their way through the forest, but the prince suddenly stops and cries out. The protagonist turns around and asks what happened. The same looks at his leg with a wound. The main character goes up to him and apologizes, saying she completely forgot about her shoes. She also asks if it hurts a lot. The guy says it's fine, apologizes. He claims that he had no idea he was so pathetic. He can't help in any way and is just a burden himself. After a moment of silence, the princess bends over and offers the man a ride on her back. But the blonde blushes a little and tries to refuse. Alina says that in his condition he can't walk, and if he doesn't want to be a burden, he should get in soon. The guy wants to object, but the princess argues that spouses should help each other when the going gets tough. The guy hesitates for a couple more seconds before apologizing and heading for the protagonist's back. But all of a sudden, a voice comes from the forest, and it turns out to be elves. One of them claims that the atmosphere there is wonderful. But looking at these two, they realize that the atmosphere is really good. Their hearts warmed. One elf suddenly misses his mother. The protagonist asks who it is. Then the main one of the trio asks permission to introduce himself. One of them is a high-class pickpocket thief. Thibaut is straight out of Assinia. The girl's name is Maine, and she's a con artist willing to screw over even her mother. And the chief of them can steal anything but a maiden's heart. The best in the whole world is Yas. The protagonist and the prince look on as he continues to introduce his faction, called the Evil Musketeers. He asks who the two are, and why the hell they trespassed on someone else's land, and if they saw the sign. The protagonist apologizes and says she didn't see it. The Yas leader says that if they want to pass through there, that they must pay to use the trail. The prince whispers in her ear that she should not listen to what these ugly men say, for they must be thieves who rob travelers passing through here, and then he asks her to trust him. The prince then waves his hand, asking if the elves are ashamed to use such tricks against a young married woman. He shows his fist and states that if they continue to attack so brazenly, he will, he swears in the name of Louise Trendemus, show them all his anger. But the elves only grimaced at this. One of them says the baby almost overpowered him, and mine wants to touch that little baby hand. The young man asks if the thieves didn't understand him, and the protagonist thinks you're perfectly understood. Suddenly, Yas cries out to see if he's going to retaliate for walking on someone else's land without permission, after which she asks if the woman wants to see the wounds on her son's adorable body. The protagonist cringes at what he is talking about, as he is not her son, but her husband. The prince adds that he is not cute, but an adult. The elves are shocked by this. One of them thinks this girl is crazy, while the other is just touched by it. But the ringleader says enough of this, and if they want to save their lives, they should pay a visitation fee and get the fuck out. The situation is so he'll charge me dearly. Maine pokes at their sack and tells them to leave it. But the protagonist is furious at such words. She screams, "Are they crazy after all? This is all she and the prince have left." The girl screamed so loudly that the elves and realized, from that scream it woke up. After that, they started to run away. The ringleader claims that they were lucky and that next time they will strip them clean. The protagonist shouts that she has become anxious and offers them money, but only so that they don't leave. Suddenly, she hears something coming from behind the bushes. Alina begins to run away with all her legs, however. Suddenly, there is a blockage in front of them. The monster from behind is already approaching, and the protagonists are scared shitless by it. A young man asks the princesses what they should do now. The boys start screaming that they don't want to die. But only a cute little critter shows up out of the bushes, and after that a couple more of them. The princess and prince think how cute they are, but from behind the bushes comes a big monster. It's very scary and huge, and similar to a bird or bear. The main characters immediately cringe, but the prince sees the monster and says how cute he is. Then they all sit and talk quietly. Louise asks if a trio of elves stole her chicks to sell. The baby bird keeps squeaking, and the prince tells her not to get so upset, because if she cries, the top chick will be worried too. The protagonist thinks she should probably leave out the details of the way the prince talks to it. The danger, of course, has passed. After all, Louise had told the monster, and to calm down, for they were not minions. Louise asks if she's saying that the elves went to town to sell the chicks. After all, if that's the case, it's worse than he thought. To do that to these little ones is just awful. The young man smiles and says that these babies are heavy. He suggests that the princess look over there, because it seems that this bird bear likes him. Fluffy's mom and the main character can't contain their smiles, but the young lady suddenly remembers that she is not his mother. Then the chicks start to play, and one of them suggests that Louise join in. The main character asks with a smile if Fluffy wants him to play with them too, but then with a serious look on his face, he apologizes and says that children should play with children, and grown people should stay out of children's games. But a couple minutes later, one of the fuzzies approaches the prince. She holds out a 4-leaf clover to him. Louise is surprised by this. He says that he is not a child. The protagonist, on the other hand, cannot understand what is happening. Mama Bird Bear addresses the young lady, and the lady can't understand what she's saying, so she asks the prince to translate. The young man says that the bird bear's mother came up to her to matchmake, for this babe had just proposed to him. The princess immediately cries out that she objects, and Louise ponders if she's jealous. Well, the protagonist just says that a man cannot marry an animal. She also adds that there is something she hasn't told the prince yet, then says with despair that they lost all their luggage when they ran away. The young lady begins to weep, for all the crystals and the magic mirror are gone. The bird bear also begins to cry, for the elves have stolen her children. The prince offers to calm down. He says they have to track down all their stuff. Alina cries out that it makes sense, and they just need to find their bags. The guy asks how on earth they're going to do it, and the bird bear starts growling. The young lady doesn't know what she's talking about, and the prince translates that her mother says to leave it all to her, for she will find these weasels and strip them of their limbs. Alina apologizes and tells her that they can't do that, because Mom is very big and these weasels are extremely smart, so they will be able to escape. The prince says it's okay and they will help. A very good plan is maturing in the protagonist. She is thinking of using one very good thing. At this time, the elves are trying to open the chest. They don't understand how they can open this lock. Well, they have no need to hurry. After all, they are going to the village to sell the chick anyway, and at the same time, they will sell the bag and open the chest. They look at the bag with the chick and wonder if the mother bird bear has found them, because those two poor souls probably didn't survive, because bird bears take people's lives. Selling one bird bear won't be enough, so one of the elves offers to see what else is in that bag. But their ringleader notices something amiss and tells these two to shut up. Suddenly, they notice a baby bird chick. This chick is very cute and alone without an adult. The ringleader cries out for those to catch him without fail and asks if they know he is asking them to do so. He points his finger at the chick and asks why he is there alone and where his family is. One of the elves thinks it's weird, since he can't see his mom, and that chick must have gotten away from everyone. Suddenly, the chick starts to run away. Yas yells to his coworkers to catch it before it runs too far away. He tells Thibaut and Maine to head towards him. The girl asks if he sees them as Pokemon, and the other elf just rushes forward. The ringleader, however, thinks that things have worked out so well. He looks at the chest and thinks that if he could get something sharp, he might be able to open it. But at the same moment he hears someone walking in very small steps, he is already making various guesses. And seeing the fuzzies, he realizes they're strays. Jazz asks if their mom went after that girl, but he doesn't have time to think about it, because we have to catch them all. The guy starts chasing the fuzz. He's even drooling. Yas claims not to be a bad elf, but immediately gets punched in the eye by one of the fuzzies. It makes him see nothing. He gets up furiously and says that when he catches them, they won't just get away with it. But Alina and Louise jump out at him from behind with sticks and hit him with all their might. At this time, Thibaut and Maine continue to chase one of the fuzzies, the girl yelling for him to let himself be caught, since he can't escape them anyway. She also yells out whether the baby really thinks he can run away with such short legs. Mane is already reaching out to him. When the two elves have already grabbed the fuzzball, they realize they are over a precipice. They fall into a big hole and realize it's a trap. Tybo asks how they can get out now, and the girl replies that they need the boss's help. Suddenly, the light is obscured by something big looking like a monster, and it really scares them. After all this, the three elves are on their knees with their hands up. They say they won't do it again and will behave well. Louise realizes that these damn musketeers with their chicken brains are only capable of mischief. You can tell by the look on the bird bear's mom's face that she would like to teach them some more sense. But this time, she will turn a blind eye to what they did and doesn't want to see their nasty faces again. The elves are already scared out of their wits. They ask to be excused and not plunged into eternal sleep. Then the main character tells them to take back what they said about him being cute. The elves say he's not cute at all, and the protagonist didn't think it still bothered him. Still, they got their stuff and the chick back, so she can't be happy. A mama bear bird cuddling her baby bird. Fluffy says he's very scared. Mom says she told him not to go so far away. The young lady asks what they are talking about, but the prince can no longer hold back the tears from such a scene. The main character says she guesses what they're talking about, because it's probably something warm and joyful. The prince then says that everything is fine, and she doesn't need to follow them anymore, and then translates what the bird said about the path that leads to the city. Afterward, they say goodbye to the furry and their mom, the main characters telling them to take care of the baby and keep an eye on him. After that, they walk down that path. Alina is glad that the prince looks happy. Suddenly, he turns to the princess and says that he didn't realize that helping others was more pleasant than receiving help. The main character is very touched by this. She says that it is only thanks to his ability to understand animals and asks when he had time to learn it, because it is so useful. But the young man says that no one talked to him when he was little, so he learned to make promises with animals. The young lady realizes this and apologizes for asking. The boy, on the other hand, also apologizes for bursting into tears so suddenly because the cute chick talk reminded him of his mother. He claims his mom was like a ray of sunshine. She was the only one who loved him. Sometimes the princess reminds him of her. The protagonist is not very happy about such words. After all, it's not like she's trying to be like his mom. But the kid goes on and says she had as good a heart as the princess. This makes the girl can't hold back a genuine smile and says he shouldn't call her his mom. The young man says that of course not. At this time, the king and queen is trying to get in touch with his daughter. He thinks it's strange because he has tried so many times before to contact the princess through the Myvi, and all to no avail. He doesn't understand what's going on and hopes that the princess is all right. The jester says that there is very urgent news, that after 10 years of confinement in the tower, the princess has finally decided to take her life into her own hands. After which the jester immediately flies away, he says, and that this joke. And the king cries out that one more such joke and all his bells will be gone. The magician states that her mirror must be unable to catch the signal, or she didn't even notice that they were calling her. So he suggests waiting a little longer. He tells the king and queen that their daughter must be doing just fine. Outside the door stands a nice-looking knight with black hair who has heard it all. The protagonists keep walking through the forest. Louise asks if they could stop there for the night. The protagonist agrees, and the young man starts a fire. Alina is surprised that he can do such a thing. Then the boy says he will go look for branches for the fire and asks if the princess could cook dinner. The protagonist looks after him. She realizes that the boy looks like a child, but she feels safe with him because he is like a fish in water in the forest and must be used to such things. She's excited because it's almost like going camping. But then she tries to shrug herself off because I shouldn't say that because it sounds childish. Princess is trying to keep the fire going and thinks this is her first sleepover in the wilderness. When the food is ready and the fire is out, the young lady notices that the prince has not been seen for a long time and does not understand where he disappeared to. But suddenly a realization comes to her. The girl asks herself what she was thinking and how could she let a small child go alone into the woods. She sets out to find her future husband and tries to call out to him. The prince answers the call. When the protagonist approaches him, she sees him snagged on a branch and asks him what he's doing there. Alina says she was worried about him and asks how long he hung there and says he should have called for help. The guy almost cries and says he feels so pathetic because he got hooked and couldn't get free again. The princess realizes that, knowing the prince, this must be very difficult for him. So she tries to reassure him and tells him that everything is fine because she is there for him. The girl fixes his clothes and tells him that he shouldn't be shy to ask for help, and it's her fault for leaving a small child alone, because many things are now difficult for him. The young man tries to say something, but stops talking halfway through, and the protagonist asks if he's having a hard time. Blondie says the bottom line is that he now gets tired quickly and doesn't get enough sleep, and he also has a hard time walking fast because his legs are short and they are starting to hurt. He also has a hard time controlling his body. The lady with the pink hair merely strokes his head and tells him that dinner is ready, before suggesting that he eat first and then discuss everything. Halfway through the meal, the little boy falls asleep. The protagonist looks at him with a smile and thinks that the prince must have been exhausted all day. The girl strokes his head and thinks she should follow his dream. The prince went through an enchanted thicket and defeated a giant fire-breathing dragon, well managed to get caught on a branch. The young lady thinks the prince is really cursed. She still can't accept that he is a small child, and to rely heavily on him is too careless of her. The girl sits by the fire and realizes that she has to protect it herself from now on. Now the boy is sitting at the table with his family. He is crying because he misses his mom very much. One of the brothers slaps his hand on the table. He cries out that he can't stand this whining. It's been a few days since his mother left this world, so he should stop with his sniveling. He says that if he hears one more sound, that boy will follow his mother. The prince tried not to make a single sound, covering his mouth with his hands, but the brothers could still hear him sobbing. One of them raised his hand and ordered him to pick up the boy's plate and set it on the floor. He grinned and said that it was just right for him, because now he could really feel sorry for himself. He smirked and said that it was just right for him, because now he could really feel sorry for himself. The youngest prince, in tears, began to bend over his plate and try to eat the soup. But his older brother kicks a bowl of soup and says what a lowlife he is, then continues on his way. After that, the boy wakes up. He wonders if he dreamed it because he remembered his childhood yesterday. He wishes he could erase it from his memory. When the young man turned on his other side, who saw Alina sleeping peacefully beside him. This makes him shriek, and the protagonist wakes up. She asks if the prince is awake, but he only cries out how she can sleep next to him like this, in the open air, because men and women are not supposed to touch each other in public. When the prince of men or nervous, he begins to lisp a little, as he does now. The young lady says that the same one is still a baby, so it's okay, but the protagonist denies it. At this time, the young lady wonders how she could have left the baby shivering in the cold, but thinks it's better not to say such a thing. After which she suggests they continue their adventures. First the boys fill their bellies. The protagonist suggests that the prince eat faster because they have a long journey ahead of them, and also tells him to chew his food well. Louise feels as if she is more protective of him than before. After a couple hours of traveling, the young lady asks if they need to take a little break, but the prince asks again, since they've already stopped several times. The girl asks what he is talking about, because they have been walking for 2 hours, and isn't the prince tired, and also remarks that it is just about time for an afternoon nap. The young man asks, since when did they have an afternoon nap? The lady with the pink hair replies that small children need lots of sleep and rest. Even if he's not sleepy, he should rest for a minute. The guy asks why she's acting like a child with him, but he hears back that it's because he is a child. The protagonist says that she knows he doesn't like it, but the prince must follow the rules, because it's for his own good. The boy tries to object to something, but still listens to Alina. The girl thinks at this rate it will take much longer to get to the nearest town. She's sure the boy's feet hurt, but he's hiding it. The princess thinks if only someone could give her a ride, and at the same moment, a wagon rushes by them. The protagonist grabs the prince by the shoulders and shakes him. She asks him if he saw the carriage go by, and he replies sluggishly that he did, and the young lady cries out, "Don't care about that. I'll have you." So the transportation has passed right in front of them, and they can't miss such a chance, so they have to stop the next wagon. The girl draws a sign asking for help to give them a ride to the nearest town, and gets on the road. The young lady wonders who would dare ignore such a pretty girl in distress. Well, at the same moment, a carriage passes near her. The girl starts to worry, but the prince tries to calm her down and says that he is sure that the carriage will stop soon. But none of the 14 wagons that passed by the princess stopped. Then the princess threw the sign on its side. She is furious at the thought of breaking the wheels of the next wagon if need be and destroying it if the Tanya stops. The protagonist picks up the sign and realizes that it is dirty. At the same time, a wagon passes by him. The man on it asks if the boy needs help, and 2 other people look out of the wagon. The main character smiles and thanks them for picking her up. One young man says no thanks, for they are on the road. They are adventurers and travel the country looking for people in need of help. The name of the red-headed woman is Karen. She is a sorceress. The large man is Terex. He is a warrior. Another guy named Aaron is a soldier. And the last of them, Jake, is an assassin. The princess asks if they ride around and help people, because if so, they are very generous. Aaron says they're just doing their own thing. He notices that the main characters don't look like adventurers and asks if the girl is traveling with her son. The main character is about to say that it's not her son, but her husband, as Louise interrupts her and says that she and Mommy are going to check on Grandma. The young lady, hearing this, looks him in the eye and mentally asks him how dare he lie that she is not his wife. They literally speak the language of the eyes. So the main character looks her in the eye and tries to tell her that they shouldn't say too much since they just met. Everyone else thinks there's some tense hookups about them. One of them looks at the boy and says that he looks grown up beyond his years and takes him in his arms. Tarek says he wants to play with him and starts spinning the baby around. The prince clearly doesn't like it. He looks at the princess for help. Well, she thinks it's his own fault. Then the witch also takes Togo in her arms and begins to squeeze him, saying how soft he is. The protagonist looks at the princess like that again, but she doesn't say anything back, and Karen asks the baby if he wants to go with her. The guy takes her hand and asks her to leave him alone, because he may be a kid, but this extra physical contact makes him uncomfortable. The woman smirks and asks, and where he learned to talk like that, she's so curious, but she's a little convinced. The girl holds out candy to him and asks if that means he doesn't want candy. The guy is a little embarrassed and holds out his hand and says what he wants. The witch, however, presents her hand to his ear and says she didn't hear him, and then tells the guy to say he wants candy. Then the prince does. The main character is watching all of this with a smile, and Aaron approaches her. He offers the girl a drink of warm wine, and she thanks him. The protagonist says that they are very noisy and asks the soldier if he thinks so too. The guy says not really. Vitya, he likes cheerful people and would be happy if he had a nice son like hers. He claims that he grew up in an orphanage, so he was unable to experience what a mother's warmth is like. The princess, looking at the other travelers, says his friends look like family. The boy, on the other hand, claims that they are, even if they fight a lot. The main character says she's been feeling that way lately too. After all, you don't have to have something in common with a person to consider them your family. She thinks family is the ones you enjoy being around and protecting them, the one who makes you happy But the protagonist has no time to speak before her eyes blur and they close. The guys think she's finally asleep. Then they load up her wagon. One of them says to lift her legs and tie the rope tighter. After that, the protagonist turns out to be a wagon. The guys say that one turned out to be pretty heavy. One of them says that she will start screaming when she wakes up, so you have to tie her mouth, and after Togo asks what they will do with the boy. Karen holds it up and claims to take care of it, and Jake says he was able to open the chest, even though it was so damn hard. He wonders how they got such a lock. And the prince starts waking up to these sounds. He's in complete shock and doesn't understand what's going on there. One of the travelers asks what they should do with that wench, for although she is already a mother, she looks quite young and can be passed off as a virgin, and she is also very beautiful. The protagonist is shocked at such words, and one of the guys says that if they sell her to a slave trader, they can get a big score. Karen notices the boy moving around a bit and asks if he's awake yet, but the prince pretends to be asleep. The woman with the red hair says this baby doesn't even realize he's going to be separated from his mother forever. Jake says to put something in the boy's mouth too, since they don't want him to start screaming when he wakes up, but Aaron says he can't stand children. He suggests waiting for the girl to wake up, since she could probably be hiding treasure somewhere else. Louise, looking at the lady with the pink hair, realizes those bastards tricked them. He hopes they didn't mutilate his wife. But the guy cannot understand what to do now and how to get out of this situation. He is too weak to get out of that woman's hands, and even if he could, how would he escape from the others? He wonders what would happen if he escaped them to find a way to save the princess, or if he needs to distract them somehow. No matter how hard he tries, there's still no way he can figure out how they can get out of there unharmed. He can't do anything in such a small body. The protagonist begins to wake up. Aaron asks how she slept, and Alina finally realizes what is happening. She looks at them with a fierce look, and the soldier says you can scare someone with that look. The main character throws off her blindfold and cries out, "What the hell are they doing?" then tells them to untie it. But the guy asks her if she's still duped, and what language to use to explain it to her so she'll get it. The young lady asks how her son is, but they tell her not to worry, because he is just sleeping. The protagonist asks what they want from them, because if there is something they want to take from them, they can share it with them, but on the condition that they are released. But everyone only chuckles at such a deal, one of them chortling that this woman is amazing, and then says that she, and everything she has, is already in their hands, and even if she won't be their property for long, as she will soon have a new owner. The protagonist is in complete shock at this, and Karen says she won't see her sweet son again, so she has to say goodbye to him, because he's going to be her pet. The main character looks at the prince with tears in her eyes. She thinks it's her fault, and it's all her fault. At this time, the king and queen are in the castle. The owner of the lands orders a search party to be assembled immediately, for they must find the princess. A knight with black hair approaches them from behind. He asks His Highness to entrust him with the task. The man says his name is Lucas, and he is the commander of the Order of the Knights of Eden. He will find the princess, even if he has to sacrifice his life. The travelers are drinking wine and rejoicing because they're lucky today. Aaron says it's all thanks to his amazing acting skills. But they can't keep the laughter out of it, Jake says, about those words of his friend about them being family even if they fight a lot. And Karen says with a chuckle that she was so touched by those words of his. Aaron cries out that he was faking it. Then Louise decides it's time to wake up. He wipes his eyes. The red-haired woman says that the baby is very cute when he is sleepy, but he just looks around and asks where his mom is. Then the woman points to the wagon and says his mom is sleeping there. She tells Louis with a devilish grin that his mom told her to play with him, and they'll have some fun while his mom sleeps. Karen asks if he's okay with that. The protagonist, on the other hand, now realizes how they deceive people, but doesn't show it. He claims that he enjoys playing with the red-haired lady. Jake asks if Karen is serious about raising this child with her. The woman says she thinks it will be okay this time, because her friend knows how much she loves children. The boyfriend claims she always says this, but asks if she remembers what happened to the last child. Then the prince realizes that if he messes up he's screwed. The woman at this time asks, and so what if the last child didn't survive? After all, it's just her hobby. Louise turns to Carino and says he wants to play with her. The woman with red hair asks what he wants to play. The boy says confidently that he wants to play hide and seek. Ah-Sol realizes that now everything depends on it. He begs the women to say yes, for it is the only way he can escape from them. Karen apologizes to Louis and says she's tired, so they suggest they play next time, but now she'll give him another candy bar instead. The guy realizes that this candy is not simple at all and most likely puts him into a dream. The woman with the red hair says that that one is a good boy and asks if he likes chocolate. The prince realizes he can't eat it, since he can't fall asleep now, but he simply has no choice. So the boy says it's delicious, and the woman asks if he's still awake, and then asks if he wants more. The boy says he really does, because he likes chocolate. Then the witch gives him a whole bag of such chocolate, and after Togo tells him not to disturb his aunt and to go and play on the sidelines. The protagonist agrees with a smile on his face and walks off in that direction, but falls on the way. Karen says that the drug must have finally taken effect. Aaron says he thought the woman would look out for him. The lady with the red hair says that kids are cute, of course, but she hates it when they're too clingy. But she likes this little guy because he's so sharp in his remarks. The boy lying on the ground quickly spits out the candy. He thinks how lucky he is that he was able to spit it out before it melted. Otherwise, he would have been knocked out again. Now he is wondering what he should do next. He decides to wait until the guys are distracted and forget about him, and then he will try to save the princess. While the others ignore him, the prince thinks of a plan. He wonders if he should just take their lives, though it's unlikely he'll be able to do that in this body. The guy realizes he can't do anything, being in such a small and weak body, but if he was even a little bit brilliant. He wonders if he really is useless and thinks what his brother would do in his place. He is already starting to hallucinate, in which his brother comes up to him and tells him that if he were in his shoes, who would do the same thing to those people as they did to him, and after that would wipe them out to make them disappear. After that, the protagonist realizes he has to fool them the way they fooled him with their circus of fantastic creatures. He's going to make them feel just as humiliated and pathetic. The guy wonders what will happen if he uses their weapons against them, but suddenly he hears someone's voice telling him to go back quickly and fetch another barrel. It turns out to be Jake. He says he wants to be the youngest one here, but that doesn't mean he has to be their errand boy. While the boy is dragging another barrel, someone says they need to drink all the wine for the night, and even that won't be enough for them. The boy sees the wine barrels in front of him and has a plan. Later that night, their commander wakes up because he has to go to the bathroom. But when he goes outside, he sees his colleagues lying on the ground. He realizes that these three could have drunk an elephant. I don't understand how much they drank to pass out. He realizes it's useless and decides to go to the bathroom after all. But on the way back, he hears a scream behind him. And when he turns around, he sees two horses backing him right into the bushes. He realizes that this kid stole their wagon and cries out for Aaron and Karen to get up. There's no way they're going to believe that. But his coworkers aren't really going to get up. The man is already wondering if the man has said goodbye to his life. But when he lifts his head, he realizes that Aaron is just sleeping, but he doesn't understand why he doesn't wake up. It's because the drugs have been mixed with alcohol. At this time, Louise is driving the wagon at full speed. He wonders if that man ran after him, but turning around, he sees that no one is there. He realizes that he made it out of the princess's pass. A little while later, he tries to bring the princess to her senses. Ta immediately snaps and asks if the prince is okay, after Togo asks what happened to those people. The protagonist says he's fine, and it's just the two of them now, but the protagonist still can't understand what happened. She asks if she had a nightmare and then what the performance was. The girl asks if it was such a prank, so she would realize how cute the prince is. The young man smiles and tells the princess that it's a great idea, but unfortunately they were real bandits. Then the realization comes to Alina that Louise has actually saved her, but the guy denies it. He says that this princess was the one who saved them both, because if it wasn't for her, he wouldn't even think that he could find a way out of such a situation. But the young lady says it's not like she did anything, and Louise says no one has ever done anything like that for him. He recalls the words of the main character that she would do anything they wanted. Well, let them just let him go. The boy thought his mother was the only one who cared about him. He claims that at that moment the princess had already saved him, so he had the strength to escape. He thanks the princess and says that it means a lot to him. The main character is so moved by this that tears start to flow from her eyes. The guy bends down and asks if the princess is crying, but she tries to deny it, after which the young man once again asks if she is really crying, and the protagonist replies that she is just touched by his words. She says that he keeps helping her and it makes her feel pathetic, but his words make her feel so grateful and guilty. Louise realizes that it's as if the girl took it off his tongue. The lady with pink hair takes the prince's hands and promises him that she will make him the happiest and his future will be the best. He can't contain his laughter and says that only a princess can say such things. The protagonist asks why he is laughing because she is serious, but she also says that it seems that he should have been the one to say those words. The next day, they decide to go further. It seems to the protagonist that they don't go in the direction they need to go, because it is quite moving there. She then asks if the prince has time to follow her, but when she turns around, she sees that the grass is up to the prince's forehead. The lady with the pink hair lifts Louis up by his hood and asks if he's okay. The guy tearfully states that he thought he was lost, and it was so dangerous in that grass. The protagonist apologizes for deciding to go down that road because it's too dangerous for him. The girl claims she'll help him get out of there, and you think that the prince is so short that he barely reaches her navel. But the young man raises his hand and claims he's perfectly fine, whichever is better than the enchanted bushes that surround the witch's tower. He says he will protect the princess and she just has to follow him. The protagonist says how nice of him, because now she feels safe. The young man asks the princess to wait and says he is clearing her path, but he cuts each blade of grass in turn. The protagonist thinks that at this rate they won't get out of there before sunset. Suddenly, the prince sees something in the grass. He tells the princess to get behind his back, for it is coming. After a few seconds they see the creature. The prince cries out that it is an evil werewolf. The wolf says that he was wondering where the noise was coming from, but now he sees that it's just people. Louise points a finger at him and asks what he's doing there, but the wolf says he was just passing by. The guy then says that he is a liar and asks if he thinks they will just believe him. He cries out that the one wants to distract them by talking and then attack and then eat them. The wolf says sarcastically that the man has exposed him. And then he cries out that the kid is a stupid kid and pats that kid on the head. He cries out that the little bastard is getting on his nerves and asks why the kid is provoking him. After that, the protagonist is already carrying the prince on her shoulders. She realizes that they have finally found the path. Then turns around and suggests that the prince cheer up because it's okay, because fighting is part of growing up. The The lady with the pink hair says that she used to fight with her little brother all the time when she was a kid, and he always hit her. Suddenly, the guy hears the sound of gurgling water and tells the princess to go that way. When they finally get there, they see a small river. The protagonist puts her feet down there and asks how the prince found the place, but he only offers the princess a little rest. The lady with the pink hair asks what about Louise and suggests he sit with her. Well, the one claims he's going to use all his fishing skills for their dinner. The young lady admires this and asks if she can fish too, but then asks how he's going to do it without a fishing rod. And the guy claims he's going to do it with his hands. The princess continues to praise him because first he found this stream just by hearing the splash of water, and now he's going to catch fish with his bare hands. Apparently, he's a survival expert. She thinks she can survive with him even in the desert. The guy already all red goes to the middle of the river and says he's going to show her all of his brilliance. But a couple steps later, plunges into the water. The lady with the pink hair asks if everything is okay. Well, after that, the prince surfaces and asks for help. The protagonist immediately runs up to him and lifts him up by his clothes. The girl asks if the prince is okay, and then they go on dry land. Alina says that the guy should be more careful and shouldn't have jumped into the water so easily. The young man claims he didn't know it was so deep. I mean, it's not even deep. The water there barely reaches the princess's navel, and he can't believe he almost drowned there. The protagonist says the prince is kind of weird today. The boy claims that he knows he's small and weak, but it's not his behavior that the young lady is talking about. For some reason, he constantly wants to take on the role of commander and protect him. He gets into fights with strangers and jumps into the water without a second thought, and in fact, behaves very recklessly. The guy asks the princess if the princess thinks he's being foolish. Eliza replies that yes, and it was very stupid, and then asks why he's acting like that. But the boy only asks if she remembers what he promised her. He promised to protect her no matter what. Well, now he can't do anything for her and just sits on her neck. Louise says he wants to be someone for her that she can totally rely on and wanted to surprise the princess. But it was so pathetic. The main character tells him that he's amazing in his own right, but he doesn't believe her. The young man claims he is having some bad luck today, but the young lady tries to cheer him up. She says she was very impressed with the way he talked to the animals, and he has no idea how surprised she was by his knowledge of flora and fauna. He also surprised others with how easily he can find his way by looking at the stars, and how he found water by hearing it from afar. The girl says everyone is surprised by different things, and to her, he is the most amazing person she has ever met. So he must promise her that he will not behave so recklessly. The guy says he promises not to do that again. But as they shake pinkies, the princess's stomach starts to rumble, and then Louise's. The girl asks what's for dinner, but the boy replies that they don't have any food. Well, suddenly, they hear someone's voice from behind them. It turns out to be that wolf with his father. He apologizes for beating Louise and offers them a fish. The main character's eyes light up, thinking what a lucky day it is. Afterwards, they all eat a meal of delicious fish together and talk amongst themselves. At this time, the commander has already reached the witch's tower. One of the knights asks what they should do, whether they should return to the kingdom and inform the king, or search for the breathless body of the princess. Commander Lucas sees the ruined tower and is shocked by this sight. Meanwhile, the protagonist and the prince have finally reached the town. The young lady asks why it's so crowded. The boy says that he overheard that once a month there is a fair and it must be today. Elena offers to find out, but first decides to go to the food stalls. But suddenly, she remembers that they have no money and not even a magic mirror, so that's why they came there. So they head to an old antique dealer who is now scrutinizing the clock. The protagonist asks if he knows about the kingdom of Aurelia. After all, it's on the eastern continent of Lior. It is a very expensive piece that has been passed down in the royal family for centuries. The old man sees that the engraving and stones are beautiful, so he wonders where they got such a thing. He looks at the girl and realizes that even though she is a little dirty, it is clear from just a glance at her clothes that she is not a commoner, and the little guy next to her looks like her servant. So the old man decides that she has run away from a rich family. He says he'll give them $1 million for it. The lady with the pink hair is already saying it's a good thing, but Louise cries out if he's joking, because this thing is worth 5 times as much. At the antique dealer asks if they can prove it's really a royal heirloom. The main character says that she is Princess Elena of Aurelia. But then the old man asks what a princess could be doing there, and if she is, he is then the king. He turns around and tells those to leave if they aren't happy with his offer, but tell them he's the only antiques dealer in town. As they leave the stall, the prince can't stop being angry. The protagonist tells the one to calm down, because 1,000,000 sets is also a good amount of money. But the boy is still angry because the royal treasure is worth a fortune, and they almost sold it for pennies. He claims the wrinkled old man is treating them like beggars. The lady with the pink hair says that now they'll be able to make some money. But the girl immediately sees some yummy stuff on display, asks the prince doesn't she look attractive. The protagonist says that the one is great with food. The woman from the stall asks what they want, and Alina asks her to give her 2 skewers of that deliciousness. Then the woman asks if the little guy wants to grab a snack with his mom. The guy looks at the princess waiting for her reaction, and the main character just says she loves spending time with her son. Then turns to Louis and asks with a genuine smile on his face if it's true. The boy's eyes light up, and he calls the princess mommy. But after they leave, he wonders what it was all about, because he thought the girl hated calling herself his mom. The young lady claims that they still think they are relatives, so she tries to get used to it. After that, the boy asks if he should call the girl his mom, but he doesn't have time to say anything as he is pushed by some woman. Alina holds out her hand to the boy and suggests that they hold hands because she doesn't want to lose him in the crowd. The boy is all red and thinks it looks strange that they are holding hands. But the protagonist points to another girl and her mom, who are also holding hands, and then on to the boy with his father. The girl claims no one would think it was weird. She says with a smile on her face that it's much safer to hold hands, and assures me that everything will be okay. Then she tells the prince that there's some kind of crowd forming and offers to go see what's there. When they come closer, they see street musicians. They have fun at this fair. Someone even gave the prince a rose. And afterwards, they had a delicious cake to eat. When they watch the fireworks in the evening, the princess says what a wonderful day it is. The guy claims they've never had so much fun at a festival before. The lady with the pink hair asks if that's true. She says she's been to a couple when she was little, and she always had so much fun there. The young man claims he could have had fun at them too, if his mom hadn't been sick. But apparently today, he caught up with her. The main character claims that there are actually a lot of things she hasn't done yet. She has never been to the sea or the desert, and recently went camping for the first time in her life. The girl asks if the guy has something that he didn't do either, but the prince says it would probably be faster to tell what he did. Then the main character starts listing all the things they've done. The guy tasted the candy, went to the festival, and helped people. Elena claims that from now on they can do anything he hasn't done so far. She adds with a smile that they can do it together, as it will be even more fun to do it together. The next day they came to an expensive boutique, and the protagonist began to dress up the prince in various outfits. The owner of the boutique also admired the boy, and said that the pink-haired lady's son looks like an angel, and asked if he could try on anything else. They tried on various outfits, but the princess didn't seem to be enjoying it very much. He approaches the princess and says that those clothes look very inexpensive and they'd better go elsewhere, but the protagonist says that he's a prince and can't wear cheap clothes. She says that these clothes look lovely on him and she wants to buy them. The owner of the boutique says she has good taste because this is just the latest season's list, and if she gives her another 20% discount, she can buy this for only 1,200,000 sets. The young lady didn't seem very concerned about the price and was already holding out the money, but the prince quickly snatched the money from her hands and shrieked that there was no way they would spend that much money. After shopping, the protagonist asked him if he was sure about these clothes. The comfortable cape cost only 50,000 sets, the princess shirt was for free, the belt and bag for 30,000 sets, the pants for 20,000 sets, and the leather boots for 50,000 sets. Alina says that of course it suits him very well, but there were outfits a little better than this one. However, the main character says that these things are so comfortable and light, and yes, the quality is good, so he is happy with the new things. He also thanks the princess for the clothes. The girl, of course, wanted to choose something better for him, but as long as the prince is happy, so be it. For the evening they came to the hotel. The young lady says that although they had a long day, they had a great time shopping. The prince, wishing only, says that he is tired. Alina says that at least he has clothes and shoes now, and that's the important thing. She then asks if the prince can watch. He doesn't know what she means and turns around. Then he sees a map in the princess's hands. The protagonist has marked their location. They are now in Hadabi, on the outskirts of the kingdom of Varnia. She also noted the approximate location of the tower. The girl thought they had traveled a long way, but it didn't look that large on the map. She then shows them their destination, Aurelia. The prince has no idea how long it will take them to get there, as he is already rejected at the mere thought of it. But the protagonist claims to have a friend near this kingdom. When she was imprisoned in the tower, she really wanted to go home. I hated that place. Her parents tried to reassure her. They said they would always be with her. The magic mirror was her only connection to the outside world. As expected, she soon became dependent on the Manhwa. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to survive all these years. With these technologies, people can easily talk through magic mirrors. Faced with similar situations, Princess created a community among themselves, trying to survive everything together. One of them is Princess Lulu, married in the kingdom of Varnia, to whom they will go. 8 years ago, she and Alina had a conversation. The girl asked what if the prince who would save her didn't like her, or if he was poor, or lived in a kingdom she had never heard of, and also asked what if he was too young. Once upon a time, there was a beautiful princess who was 18 years old. That's the right age to find a groom. But unfortunately, this country had a strange custom of locking princesses in a magical tower. It is a marriage tradition that the prince who saves a maiden must marry her. The parents of the protagonist hate this custom. They ask if they can send their favorite daughter alone to the tower. 2 servants argue that His Highness is obliged to do so, for tradition must be followed. The father of the protagonist claims that in order to be able to sit on the throne, you can't do without a son-in-law. However, he has no idea what kind of man would be suitable for the role of his daughter's consort. Suddenly, he rises from his chair and cries out that he will find the best possible man for her. That's how the princess got into the mightiest witch tower in the world. Her parents rejoice, for they think the bravest and strongest man in the world will soon appear. 10 years have passed, and the young lady has waited day after day for her prince, ready to rescue her. The protagonist can no longer tolerate it, she asks when the prince will appear. After all, the princess of the kingdom of Aurelia, Alina, is already 28 years old, and she is still unmarried. Suddenly, the girl hears the sound of an incoming call from the kingdom of